of Mice and Men released Echo / Ad Infinitum. Should we talk about the new songs first as an EP, and then we'll get to Echo as a whole?
Yeah.
We talked about Mosaic when it came out, and it's sick. I feel like Fighting Gravity allowed space for Aaron's cleans to shine, and then Echo is just like this. It was like somber but strong as well. If that makes sense. I really like these songs, and then Helplessly Hoping to me felt like the thing that wrapped the EPs together. It felt like an album closer.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they hadn't have done this as an album, and it was just these four, I'd have felt maybe like Helplessly Hoping was a bit sort of tacked on.
Mm-hmm.
But when you listen to it all the way through, with all the EPs, it felt like a sort of bow on the end of things.
No, I pretty much echo the same.
Echo.
Brilliant.
Hey. Out of all the new songs that weren't on the previous EPs, Mosaic and Echo were my favourites. It just hits all the metalcore points that I want when I listen to this kind of music. Echo builds beautifully, really peaks in the chorus, which is just gorgeous. And I think, like you say, Fighting Gravity, you just hear those cleans really, really soar, and it's just gorgeous. And then kind of it just ends lovely, and it is a really, really nice way to wrap up the album.
I mean, if you look at it as an album, every single song on here could be a single, which I guess is why it makes sense to release it as a couple of different EPs. I think Levy and Bloom are my two favourites still, even though we heard them quite early on. I think where it's lacking as an album is because we've already heard so much of it in different intervals. To go back and listen to it all in one go, you've kind of already heard a lot of it, so there's no surprises. And it was released in like track list order.
That's
as well,
what I was going to say. I felt like if they had jumbled the order,
you've got to wait until the end until you've got something new.
Yeah, because I saw a lot of people online were a bit mad when they announced it as an album. They were like, people felt a bit cheated, but I just thought but I think it's enforced by the fact that it's just in order, that you feel like you're just listening to 3 EPs back to back in a way. But
I get exactly why they've done it. It's so that everyone pays attention to every song, and because of the way that music's consumed nowadays, a lot of it's through streaming. More people are likely to listen to 3 singles than they are a whole album.
I think this will be a model that people follow, though, because we've been talking about them all year.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will do this. I mean, look at all the artists that you see at the top of the charts, like the pop artists. They don't really release albums often. They just release single after single after single. And that's because that's what gets into playlists. That's what gets all your plays and gets you out there a bit more. So I understand exactly why they've done it, but I feel like it makes... Put it this way, I think this would have been a lot higher on some people's album of the year lists if it was released just as an album.
Yeah, agreed.
But this is where you two had listened to them previously. I hadn't. And so for what they've done, it's catered to me absolutely perfectly. Because this time last year, I don't think... You could probably play 1 or 2 of their bigger songs and I'd recognise riffs. Off the back of this and what they've done this year, I'm now a fan. And I'm really gassed to see them next year at Downhill Festival. Obsolete for me has made it onto like my shortlist when I was like getting down to Song of the Year. Obsolete was up there. And whether it is on my Song of the Year, you'd have to listen to the awards. But for what they've done and how they've kind of brought these EPs out this year and scattered it throughout, they've very much been in the forefront of what I've listened to. And so getting new listeners in, perfect. So for me, it was really, really well, and it was digestible and great to get through and a great introduction to this band. And like I think you'd mentioned previously, Alex, that you felt like these EPs that were getting released were similar to, was it Restoring Force, as like some of their best work?
I think now it's out as a whole thing, this is probably their best.
I was going to say, I know I sounded really negative then. I was more talking about like the way music's consumed rather than the album. But this is their best album.
Yeah.
I think.
100%. Yeah, it was just that people had that sort of... When you first look at it as an album, you're like, well, I've heard the first 6 songs.
I felt the same with the Nothing Nowhere album at the start of this year, because some of those singles had been out, maybe because of the pandemic, for so long already. Like I think 6 or 7 of them were singles already. Yeah. That most of the album I'd already heard, and as an album it was underwhelming. It's the same kind of feeling with this one.
Yeah.
That it's not that it's a bad album or that the songs aren't good. It's just I've already heard them all.
Yeah, I wonder how it would have fared if they had just mixed up the track listing a little bit. But that's like the only critique I have, because this
It's an incredible album. I love
this
it.
this has like redefined them, because a lot of people will think of Restoring Force when you first say of Mice and Men, and now hopefully people will think of this instead. And yeah, we've been talking about them all year, whereas a lot of bands think about the bands that we've reviewed back in February. I can't even remember all of the albums we talked about.
Let's get them at the forefront.
Pretty much. God,
Most months.
I might do the stats and see how many episodes they've appeared, but it's probably a lot.
Yeah. Great album.
And that's exactly why that strategy does work in some
Yeah.
cases.
Well, we've seen loads of EPs this year, like more than, and I don't know whether that's just a result of the pandemic, but I mean, essentially 4 here, because
Yeah.
Amity ended Static Dress, and then the Of Mice and Men, the new.
Maybe it's the way
songs.
forward.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe we'll discuss at some point.
Well, and then it was Bring Me's plan as well, wasn't it? They wanted
Yeah.
to do 4 in a year. Obviously, it's sort of, I think it just got a bit away from them, but seems the way people are going.